Hi, this is Anthony Parent of IRSMedic, and thank you for joining me. We have this for our 2020 Form 5471 guide, how to fill out and prepare Form 5471. Now, Form 5471 did change a little bit since tax reform of 2017, so we really have we have a tax season under our belt, so we can really get to some of these great questions people have left us about how to prepare Form 5471. With me is Robert Hanson, our lead international attorney, and he's here to help us out with this. And so question one, what do I do with Form 5471? That's the first question we got.
File it. If you have to file it, file it.
Next question is a little bit more serious. I don't have the information to file Form 5471. What should I do?
In these situations, you just have to make do. File with what you have, and then hopefully it's not substantially incomplete. But if it would fall into the substantially incomplete category, you can include some type of reasonable cost statements with the amended return. But the strategy for that would be file now with what you have, continue to try to get the information, and if you do, or if you're able to get it later on, amend the return.
Yeah, and I would say this, document all your efforts to get the records, because if you are examined, you could to show the IRS, look, this is what I've tried to do. I've exhausted my best efforts. You can't make someone give something to you. It's kind of hard.
Right.
Next question is how to report earnings on Form 5471 for a shareholder in the U.S. Well, I guess that's kind of how to fill out a Form 5471. That's generally the big question.
A little bit. There is a profit and loss statement as part of the main body of the Form 5471, in addition to a balance sheet that you have to do. Even that's required for a couple of different categories of filer of the 5471, including someone who is a transactional, right? Even if you don't have the year-over-year filing requirement, you'd still have to do that stuff. That said, if you are receiving a wage from your foreign entity that you also happen to be a part owner of, then that wage is going to go onto your line 7, regardless. That's not going to be on the 5471 in that way. In addition, the deemed income items like Subpart F and GILTI, those have some schedules attached that will show that, but those will just flow over to your personal returns.
Should organizational costs be deducted fully on Form 5471?
If it's part of the necessary expenses and ordinary necessary expenses of the business for setting it up or for its continual operation, then yeah, that'll show up on the profit and loss statement.
Okay, the next question I got kind of excited over because it's just a perfect example. I think of someone being really intelligent. This is a really intelligent question of someone who has a completely wrong premise, unfortunately, because the premise is based in common sense. Well, that's the problem you have. Do I need to file IRS Form 5471 if I only have dividend income on an otherwise dormant company?
Yes. So, well, a couple things. You're able to do a dormant filing even with some income out of the business, but it's a very small amount. That said, if it is paying a dividend above that amount, then even if the company overall is inactive, is dormant, then you have a 5471 filing requirement either way.
Yeah, and that question sort of, because someone's asking the question, what it sounds like to me is they haven't been filing Form 5471s on years in which there was no dividend income because it was just dormant. Well,
right.
There is that dormant 5471 requirement, and the penalty on a dormant one is the same as an active one, the same thing. So, and there's procedures to follow that. There are. If you go to IRSMedic.com, we have those procedures on how to file. Is Form 5471 prepared in accordance with US GAAP or statutory accounting?
This is actually
question.
This is actually a pretty high level question. The form calls for US GAAP. That's pretty clear. Now, we deal with people a lot of time with books that are prepared in the home countries. They don't follow US GAAP. They follow other international accounting standards. So we're familiar with the idea of kind of different accounting standards when trying to do these things. Getting the books in line with US GAAP can be a intricate, comprehensive process, we'll say. So most things are going to be roughly the same. It's not like it's completely alien, but there's going to be certain edge cases. There's going to be certain particular cases where US GAAP standards are going to give a very different result from a statutory accounting standard.
Yeah, and I would say this. My guess is why somebody would want to do statutory just to lower, to get a liquidation value of assets on a balance sheet to get the lower stat. My question is, you might be able to get a lower value on GAAP. What is the reason why you believe the assets shouldn't be valued the way they are? What's the reasoning? And maybe there is an actual reason. You don't need to go into something like statutory GAAP. And I would say this, I think if you're being consistent year over year, you're going to have a better shot. If there's just 1 year out of the blue, hey, got to do statutory accounting here. Yeah, that's probably that would probably be something that would lead to a $10,000 penalty. Out of 1 year, you did it different way. If you did statutory GAAP year after year with a really good explanation, I don't know if the IRS would ever pick up on the fact that
you would at least have an argument for it, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what are some other forms that should be filed by someone who files Form 5471? Well, there's a few that could be there, right?
Right. So the main body of 5471 is about 4 or 5 pages. There are other attachments, other schedules that have to get attached to that, which are required depending on your different category of filer. Schedules. The schedules are the main ones. Schedule M, O, J, P. Those are the main 4 that we see that people have to do, depending on what type of category of filer they are. In addition, there could be, like we've talked about before, Form 926 if you've made a contribution into the corporation, Form 8938, even if you have a 5471 filing requirement, that form would still be needed because the value of the entity on the 5471 counts towards the 8938 thresholds.
There could be a lot coming. That's right. And we have the transition tax, which is an issue that pops up. Again, I think there's some other questions on that. Do I pay taxes on Form 5471 revenue?
Maybe. The answer is maybe.
Yeah.
The answer is maybe. Directly, really not. Directly, really not. Now, under the old rules, and this is kind of what kind of became the folk understanding, the idea that you don't pay tax on the money until you quote unquote bring it back to the United States. So what this meant in practice was that you were paying yourself a dividend or a wage, but really a dividend up from the foreign company to yourself, either the corporate shareholder or the individual shareholder. So that's how that would get reported on your personal return. But with Subpart F income created in the 60s, and then the GILTI tax created in 2017, there are now 2 types of deemed income that could flow through to your personal return that are what people have in mind when they say, well, will the revenue be taxed? GILTI is a little bit more comprehensive than what Subpart F was, but Subpart F has got a lot of intricate rules that you might have Subpart F income not realize it.
And we have some great videos on GILTI to explain what that is all about, too. That was sort of a nasty creature of the 2017 tax reform. Next question is, how does Form 5471 treat K1 affiliates?
I would need a little bit more information as to what this person is getting at. If a K1 affiliate is the one that's in need of filing the form, or they have other members filing the form, typically, if you've got a U.S. person, whether a corporation, partnership, or individual, or partners in a company, and that there's a 5471 filing requirement, then someone's got to file it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'm just wondering if, K1 sort of becomes its own word, in its own right, and someone might be using the word K1 to describe something overseas. Like, well, that's not the way it works. Right. K1s are something that are issued by domestic entities only. So it's not something, a K1 can't be issued. Well, it could be, but it would be incorrect. It's really a 5471 is kind of your K1 equivalent, is the way that I've always thought about it as a shareholder. That's kind of the way I think of it. It's just that 5471 is a lot nastier, and don't look for the partnership to prepare it for you, or the corporation. That's really up to you, because there might not be any other shareholders that have to do it, because you might be the only U.S. person. How to report income from Form 5471 to a U.S. 1040 tax return? Yeah,
that's a good question, because it's not clear on the 1040. It's not even really clear on the 5471 itself. What happens is, so for a wage, it gets reported on line 7. Interest and dividends gets reported on lines 8 and 9. respectively. For those deemed income items like Subpart F and GILTI, that will go on line 21 as other income.
Next question is, do Treasury Regulations 318 apply to 5471? And to me, I'm like, yeah, this is like the biggest yes in the world.
Right.
This is the attribution that's
Right.
that we've been talking about. So absolutely, that's a really good question. Now, how do we figure earnings and profits for Form 5471?
Start with GAAP standards, and you're going to have to check the statutes and regulations for the IRS for this. There are particular statutes and regulations for regular domestic earnings and profits calculations, and then there are some specific ones for foreign entity earnings and profit calculations.
And by the way, if this is something you're having a problem filling out yourself or for one of your clients, give us a call. We help fill out a lot of 5471s, make sure they're done around the world. It's rather insane that we're necessary, that we have become so necessary. Next question is, how does report surplus reserves on Form 5471?
On the balance sheet, they have sections for that, and they have worksheets to do that for retained earnings and profits calculations. They're not all the same thing, but they're all related concepts. And for earnings and profits specifically, there's now not only one, but two different extra schedules that you'd have to do for the 5471 if you are that category of filer that needs it. Two separate schedules for earnings and profits for both the pre-2018 earnings and profits and the post-2017 from 2018 and on. This is because of the transition tax that was imposed with the 2017 tax return.
How should I report dividend distributions on Form 5471?
So I'm not sure if this person is referring to another subsidiary, like a subsidiary of the foreign entity. If that's the case, then that'll be reported as income, and that would potentially be Subpart F type of income, passive dividend type income from other subsidiaries. Up from your 5471, though, that'll be reported as a dividend normally on your Schedule B.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the questioner is asking it from this context, that they received a distribution from a foreign corporation, and received a distribution. They did some research. It's like, yep, received a distribution. Okay, I need to file a Form 5471. Well, I'd say, hold on a second. Let's stop. Maybe you don't. Let's do our analysis. Are you a shareholder? Which one has to qualify? If so, well, you have a little bit more work to do. That's just not a simple thing to do. We have to do, figure out what we have. Now, we do have videos on the schedules. We have guides coming on the schedules, categories coming up. So you want to be turned to make sure you watch those. When is Form 5471 due?
With your tax return in April or extended to October.
Or permissive to December 15th, if you have that as well. And I would say not only that's a great question. That's a better question probably than the question realizes, because we have Forms 3520 and Form 3520A. Right. And those are not due on April 15th. Those are actually due a month earlier. You get an extension. But that's something that catches people off guard all the time. So that 54, that's a really good question because it could be different. It actually could be. Do I report controlled foreign corporation bank account information on Form 8938 since it's already on Form 5471?
No, you don't have to. And that's the reason why, in part, there is a section on the 8938 to show how many 5471s that you've filed. The returns, the instructions do talk about this and say, if it's already going to kind of be captured by the 5471 filing, no need to do it separately on the 8938. That doesn't necessarily mean the same thing, though, for the FBAR.
That's right. Yeah. So look for the FBAR because you could be a signatory. Chances are you could be, you could not have a 5471 obligation and have an FBAR, or you could be, or the situation is you also might not be a signatory on the FBAR, but still have to file the FBAR because you control the corporation that controls the account. So that's something you got to look out too. So you could have your 5471 correct, but miss out on some other things, and that's why it's a little bit of a trap here, right? Where on Form 5471 do you track foreign taxes paid?
There are some particular schedules on the Form 5471 where you would show foreign income taxes paid. I don't remember the exact schedule, but it does go on to one of the schedules. I think it's excess profits income tax schedules to show what you paid directly in foreign taxes.
Next question is related. Can a foreign corporation tax be used as a tax credit on Form 5471?
As a credit, not Not really, not in the way that we think of taking a credit on a 1040. If the foreign entity paid foreign income taxes, that will go into the calculation for their earnings and profits, but it's not necessarily a credit in the same way. For it to be a credit in kind of the way that we think about when we think about taking a credit, some other things have to happen, and the person taking the credit is not the foreign entity itself, but the U.S. person who's the shareholder. So either the domestic corporation or, again, the citizen green card holder or permanent resident.
And I would say this, tracking credits is actually one of the hardest things to do, and the IRS even admits that they have a hard time following the credits. It is just a common thing. It gets really complicated to see what is, what you can use and what you can't. So it's an issue, right? The next question is how to value a company based on Form 5471. Maybe this person is asking the question because they received a Form 5471 from an adversarial, like say a divorce. Maybe that's because I saw this question earlier and I was kind of trying to figure out what are they asking. And so maybe that's the question, is that it was a divorce proceeding, they got a 5471 from their spouse, like, okay, what does this mean? And I would say that might be a pretty dangerous way to go about valuing a company based on a 54, finding the actual value. So I don't think you really could. To start.
Right. The Form 5471 is not, you will come up with like an equity value overall on the balance sheet on the 5471, but the valuation of a company is something is related, but a little bit different than what the 5471 is trying to do. So obviously, as I mentioned, you're gonna have your equity share in there as your rough approximation for what you would think the value of the company would be. But if you're looking for actual valuation, then the IRS allows you to take reasonable standards and reasonable approaches for valuation.
And I would say this, that, I think that tax returns have kind of in modern day have become a stand-in for someone's profit and loss statement to determine their ability to pay. So in divorce proceedings, requesting tax returns are something judges do all the time, and judges can generally understand a personal tax return. And so that is something where it's like, okay, well, this person's, adjusted gross income is this amount. Okay, therefore we can figure out this under the guidelines. This is what they have to pay in child support. You cannot do that with the 5471. You're not going to get you're not going to get a number that's going to be helpful. That's what I would say. You would want to do something different. Don't rely on the tax return to figure out what that person is actually making, because, oh my God, wow, no, you totally get the wrong result. Yeah, don't do that. Is a Form 5471 balance sheet required to be in U.S. dollars?
The balance sheet, yes, is in U.S. dollars. Yep. The part where it's original currency and then U.S. dollars, I believe, is for the profit and loss statement.
Okay. Okay. Now, what schedule does Subpart F income go in on Form 5471?
It traditionally has been on Schedule I, although there are separate worksheets in the instructions that you will need to attach that actually show the Subpart F calculation. But Schedule I is the part on that form where Subpart F is shown.
How to amend a Form 5471?
You amend a 5471 technically by amending your personal return, right? So you're going to attach a 1040X to the top of it, and then just show the new calculations with some type of explanation statement attached, detailing what your changes are, because that form is it can get pretty complicated and changes can get lost. So you probably want to attach some type of explanation as to what the changes that you made were to a 5471.
And I'm thinking, if you're amending, and I think people ask if you could refile. Sometimes people ask that question. Sometimes people ask if you can apply for a 5471. And I think it's, we have a lot of non-native English speakers, and they're trying to use, the language that they use, and it seems sort of makes sense. You don't have to apply for a 5471. You yourself have to make the determination, or you're a tax professional, that you have to file it. You can do it. The thing that I'm concerned about, if you've been listening to us, is that there's usually a litany of forms. There could be other forms created. And if you're amending return and you're examined, do you see how that's different than if you filed a return, it was wrong, as opposed to you amended a return to correct it, and now it's wrong? Why was it wrong the second time? So you really want to make sure when you're amending
Right.
return, you didn't leave anything off. And that's something you need help with. You just
Right.
outreach to us. We can help you with that one. Where to file Form 5471 for dormant corporations. And I would say that there's links to IRSMedic on, we'll give the links to IRSMedic on that. There is a procedure to file for that. And now Form 5471 can be e-filed as a return, correct?
I believe so, yes.
It can be e-filed now, but timely. It can't be, you can't be untimely. And
Correct.
plus, you wouldn't want to do that anyway, because you'd want to call us first before you submitted a naked 5471. You don't
Right.
want to do that anyway. All right, so that finishes this segment of our guide and how to fill out and prepare Form 5471. Now, I'm sure you have other questions. Please leave them in the comments below. We are going to go back and answer all the unanswered questions that this guide generates, which we expect to be substantial, so please leave them below. Please join us for our next section in our guide, which is going to be where we're going to be discussing categories, schedules, and fees of Form 5471. This is Anthony Parent for Robert Hanson. I thank you for watching.